2 contemporaneous accounts exist of Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon Church, admitting in plain language that he was a fraud, a con man. Let's take a look. In this video, you'll see the first account, then the second account, and then we'll go into a brief investigation of the nature and quality of this evidence. Got to bring my books out. Got to show off my books. Additional to books like this, Personal Writings of Joseph Smith, Rough Stone Rolling, History of the Church, josephsmithpapers.org is an extremely valuable resource, an extremely good website to visit if you want to dig deeper into Mormon history. It has all sorts of manuscripts from Joseph Smith's own hand, from his closest associates, and many other photos and information about other historical artifacts in Mormon history. So just a little preface, you need to know this for the context of the video. A few years before Joseph Smith started the Mormon Church, it was reported that he was involved in juggling, money digging, and glass looking. Money digging and glass looking were done with mystical powers to find treasures in the earth. So these accounts that we're about to go over are largely in reference to those practices before he started the Mormon Church. And these are just 2 accounts of Joseph Smith allegedly claiming he was a con man. There may be more accounts. When investigating religious history, I really try to discover the original evidence of things, the best evidence, show it to you and explore it. So here it is. This first account was written by Abram W. Benton in 1831 and published by a magazine, the Evangelical Magazine and Gospel Advocate, that same year. This is the actual article in print. There's more in the article than what I'm going to read to you right now, but you should definitely go in and read it all for yourself. It's really not that long, and it's really cool to kind of read the whole thing. So the portion that I'm going to read it starts right here. In order to check the progress of delusion and open the eyes and understandings of those who blindly followed him, and unmask the turpitude and villainy of those who knowingly abetted him in his infamous designs, he was again arraigned before a bar of justice during last summer to answer to a charge of misdemeanor. This trial led to an investigation of his character and conduct. Addison Austin was next called upon, who testified that at the very same time that Stowell was digging for money, he, Austin, was in company with said Smith alone, and asked him to tell him honestly whether he could see this money or not. So Austin, he wanted to know, hey man, just tell me, like, can you actually see what's this stuff or what's going on? Smith hesitated some time, but finally replied, quote, "To be candid, between you and me, I cannot, any more than you or anybody else, but any way to get a living," unquote. So he's like, no, I can't see anything, but I just need to make money. Then I'll show you account number 2. This account was ostensibly written by a justice of the peace, Joel K. Noble, who was allegedly present at the trial of Joseph Smith. This account was originally published in a newspaper, the Boston Christian Herald, in 1832. And again, I'm just going to read you the portion where Joseph Smith allegedly says he's a con man, but you should definitely read the whole thing. And I'll obviously give you links to all this stuff down below so you can check it out. So this account is very hard to read from this photograph, but you can read it. They called them Mormonites before. Maybe that was like a derogatory term or some way to make fun of them. I don't know. So I'm going to read you the text that I'm actually going to read is down here, or I should say over here. I'll start right here. The defendant was brought before me. I'll start there, and then I kind of chop it up a little bit, but the text runs all throughout here. And then, yeah, here's the bulk of what I'm going to read to you right now. This is allegedly what the Justice of the Peace, Joel K. Noble, said. This is the account published in the Boston Christian Herald. The defendant was brought before me by virtue of a warrant on the 30th day of June, AD 1830, on a charge, quote, that he, the said Joseph Smith Jr., had been guilty of a breach of the peace against the good people of the state of New York by looking through a certain stone to find hidden treasures. At the instance of the people, Joseph A. S. Austin was by me duly sworn, and says, quote, that he had been acquainted with Smith, the prisoner, for several years, that prisoner pretended to look in a certain glass or stone and said he could tell where stolen goods were and could discover mines of gold and silver underground. Once witness asked prisoner, he's kind of writing shorthand, I guess. I mean, it appears that way. Once witness asked prisoner to tell him if he, prisoner, could tell anything by looking in said glass and wished a candid and true answer. Prisoner told witness frankly he could not see anything, and in answer, prisoner likewise observed to witness, anything you know for a living. Unquote. Okay, so now let's think a little bit about the quality and nature of this evidence. Not all evidence is of equal quality or of equal use. Let's look at account number 1. Here's the history of transmission for this account. A heavily anti-Mormon magazine, the Evangelical Magazine and Gospel Advocate, said that Abram W. Benton said, without citing any of his sources, that Addison Austin said that Joseph Smith said that he was a con man. So that is the history of transmission of that account of Joseph Smith saying something. It's not Joseph Smith saying that he was a con man. It's an account of someone saying that another person said that a different person said that Joseph Smith said he was a con man. It's an account of hearsay. You have you're 4 steps down. You're 4 steps away from an original quote from an individual. We can discover that he was in error, let's just say. I think he was honestly mistaken. But we can discover that through other means. We don't need this to understand that. So now let's take a look at account number 2. This one's a little more complicated. This is essentially how it breaks down if you read the entire account in the newspaper, which I encourage you to do. Please double check me and let me know your opinion if you are interested in this historical event, this ostensible historical event. So this is how it breaks down. A significantly anti-Mormon newspaper, there's a little bias there, not necessarily indicating that everything they say is lies about things that they don't like, but there is a little bias there. So they have a reason to maybe make stuff up, or they have reason to embellish. Like I said, not necessarily indicating that they did that, but you have a significantly anti-Mormon establishment, an anti-Mormon, heavily evangelical Christian newspaper, who said that an anonymous friend said that an anonymous gentleman said that Joel K. Noble said that Joseph A.S. Austin said that Joseph Smith said he was a con man. To be more specific and exact, the full history of transmission of account number 2 is as follows. Justice of the Peace Joel K. Noble was allegedly present at the trial of Joseph Smith, and he took notes. He wrote down the minutes of the trial himself. After the trial, Noble made a copy of his original minutes of the trial, the original trial notes that he made while he was present, and that copy somehow made its way into the hands of a gentleman who made a copy and subsequently gave that copy in the form of a letter to his friend, which copy by unknown transmission found its way into the possession of a friend of the editor of the Boston Christian Herald, which then published the account. It is kind of complicated to arrive at the history of transmission of account number 2. Like I said, I encourage you all to double check me and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Frankly, in my assessment, the evidence is poor that Joseph Smith said that he was a con man. Just with these 2 accounts, these evidences, I don't think that we can assign a strong probability that Joseph Smith said he was a con man. Like I've said previously, though, there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle. You have to consider a lot of different moving parts, many different evidences, many historical artifacts to arrive at the truth. If we just have these 2 accounts, I would not be certain at all that Joseph Smith said he was a con man. This is hearsay. I wish we had the original minutes from Noble while he was at the trial, if he indeed was, his actual record. I wish we had that. That would be a different story. If we had Joseph Smith and we had a paleographer, someone who was an expert in signatures, and we had him analyze an account from Joseph Smith's own hand saying, I am a con man. I was a glass looker, juggler, and money digger just to make a living. That's something, But this is hearsay. We have 2 accounts of hearsay. I'm not impressed. I wish we had better evidence. For the record, the Mormon Church is still a scam. This has been The Faithless Father. If you want to support the channel, I'll put the Patreon link down below. Subscribe so you don't miss out on videos like this in the future.